Oh, hiya, honeys. Welcome back to my spooky little corner. For those that don't know me, I am Lady Mylita. And where have you been? You should know me by now. I bid you welcome to Monster Mondays. It's just another Monster Monday. If you find yourself asking, what are these Monster Mondays you speak of? Well, let me explain my concept to you. Like other prominent YouTubers, they have combined two of their passions into one. And that is kind of what I'm hoping to do here for you lovely darklings. So, on Mondays, I will be coming to you with macabre tales. Either of folkloric monsters or epic, legendary creatures. Or of delightfully and dark, savage movies. And yes, even glorious written tales of delirious and damaged souls of the dark. So, if that sounds like something you'd be into, stay tuned and let's dive in. Okay, my lovelies, I'm looking rough this week. I mean, I got to buzz my sides really bad. I'm getting a lot of growth here. I usually try to keep it trimmed for my videos, but I've been having a week. I've been suffering from migraines like you wouldn't believe. I'm not sure if it's just the weather change because it's getting so lovely up here in Ontario. But yeah, debilitating. The one I couldn't even see out of my left eye. It was terrible. So I do have a doctor's appointment, but it's not for a while. But anyways, I digress. It is Monster Mondays, not Lady Mylita whining day. So I was trying to think of a topic to pick today, and seeing as it's close to St. Patrick's Day, I thought, what better creature to talk about than the leprechaun? So I'm sure all of you lovely darklings know all about leprechauns. They are in our lives pretty much almost daily. Almost daily you see a reference to a leprechaun. But they are also kind of the, I want to say, mascot for St. Patrick's Day, because the leprechaun myth obviously comes from Ireland. And it is a supernatural being within Irish folklore. And it is classed actually as a solitary fairy type, which I thought was kind of interesting, that they're actually considered fairies. They are usually depicted as little bearded men wearing green with a big top hat and a nice little suit. And they participate in a lot of mischief, at least in the folklore. They have been depicted actually as shoemakers. Now that's not something I knew about, but they're depicted as shoemakers who have hidden pots of gold at the end of rainbows. I always loved that. When I was a little girl, I always thought, wouldn't it be great to catch a leprechaun? Get all that gold. It's interesting though, leprechaun-like creatures don't really appear in Irish mythology and only became more prominent in later folklore. I found that fascinating because it's such a big part of our modern culture, if you will. So the earliest known reference to leprechauns appears in a medieval tale known as, now I'm probably going to butcher this all to heck because although I do have Irish descent, I cannot speak it. So it is Extra Fergus MacLetty, I want to say, and I apologize if I butchered that all the heck, which I probably did. Again, I apologize. And it translates to Adventures of Fergus, son of Letty. So I'm assuming Fergus probably is a person. It's also a town too in Ontario. The text contains an episode where Fergus MacLetty, king of Ustler, U-L-S-T-E-R, Ustler, and he falls asleep on a beach and he wakes up to find himself being dragged into the sea by 3 leprechauns. He captures his abductors, who grant him 3 wishes for their release. So that's interesting. I wonder why they were putting him into the water. It doesn't really say on here why, but I kind of wonder why. The water, huh? That's interesting. So here's something else I found very interesting while I was researching the Leprechaun, was that depending on where in Ireland the Leprechaun was, it had a different appearance. Like, I think because we just think of like the modern little guy with the red beard and the green eyes and all the green outfit, you know, we don't realize that there's a lot more mythology to the Leprechaun. Prior to the 20th century, it was generally held that leprechauns actually wore red, not green. So Samuel Lover, writing in 1831, this is how he described the leprechaun. Okay, so I'm going to read it directly from the page. It says, he's quite a beau in dress, notwithstanding, for he wears a red square-cut coat, richly laced with gold, expressible of the same, cocked hat, shoes, and buckles. So that's how they describe it. They don't describe anything green. It's red and gold, which, again, that's kind of fascinating. So according to William Butler Yeats, and he is a writer and amateur folklorist, he was a part of the revivalist literary movement, which greatly influenced in calling attention to the leprechaun in the late 19th century. So he is like, I guess, the guy to talk to about leprechauns. And he says the solitary fairies, like the leprechaun, wear red, whereas trooping fairies, as he calls them, wear green. So that's interesting. At least that was interesting to me. I had no idea that, you know, there was like a color classification to them. I found that kind of fascinating myself. So there's a description of what like the universal leprechaun looks like. I'm going to read that to you. So he is about 3 feet high and is dressed in a little red jacket or roundabout. I'm not sure what a roundabout is versus a jacket, but with red breeches buckled at the knee, gray or black stockings, and a hat, cocked in the style of a century ago, over a little old withered face. Round his neck is an Elizabethan ruffle, so he's got like a big ruffly collar, and frills of lace at his wrist. Oh my god, the leprechaun's goth. On the Wild West Coast, where the Atlantic wind brings almost constant rains, he dispenses the frills and ruffs and wears a frieze overcoat over his pretty red suit, so that unless on the lookout for the crooked hat, he might pass the leprechaun on the road and never know it was him at all. Wasn't that interesting? I don't know what a frieze coat is, so any of you darklings know what that means or what the difference of a roundabout versus a jacket is, that would be awesome too. But that's kind of what they are supposed to look like, and I'm fascinated by the fact that they look like little gothies, you know, with all their frills and red. Like, come on. How many times have you seen a gothy out there, you know, at the club wearing frills and maybe not red, but you know, red's definitely one of our colors. I really find it fascinating that he was wearing red and we all assume he wears green. So the other thing I'm reading here is that depending on the location, their dress will be different too, which that again, how fascinating. So the northern leprechaun, or oh boy, darklings, there's some big words here. Loggerthy man, and that is spelled Logheryaman. Wore a military red coat with white breeches with a broad brim high pointed hat on which he would sometimes stand upside down. I'm like, well, that sounds fascinating. I don't know why he'd do that. Again, darklings, if I say words wrong, please correct me. I'm not above to admitting my mistakes here. The Lugardon. So Lurigadawne of Tipperary wrote, an antique slash jacket of red with peaks all around and a jockey cap, also sporting a sword, which he uses as a magic wand. Wow, that's fantastic. Okay. Can you imagine meeting that one? That'd be interesting. The Lucrania, oh my goodness, Lurica, Lucrean, Awne. My word, darklings, I am having some issues with the freaking pronunciation here. Was a fat, pursy fellow whose jolly round face rivals the redness of a cutaway jacket he wears that always has 7 rows of buttons, in 7 in each row. Can you imagine? That's a lot of buttons. So, Clucarian, Cluricawne. I am so sorry, darklings. Of Monaghan, wore a swallow-tailed evening coat of red with a green vest, white breeches, and black stockings, shiny shoes, and a long coned hat without a brim, sometimes used as a weapon. See, that kind of makes sense. Why wouldn't, if you had that big of a hat and it was pointy, you would want to use that as a weapon, I would think. Kind of like that idea. I'm not going to lie, like the idea of a leprechaun using his hat as a weapon. It's definitely not what we see as leprechauns right now, right? Like we have a different vision of what a leprechaun is, but that's a cool idea. I kind of like that idea. In the poem entitled The Leprechaun, or Fairy Shoemaker, and it is from 19th century or 18th century Irish poet William Allingham, described the appearance of the leprechaun as a wrinkled, wizened, and bearded elf. Spectacles stuck to his pointed nose, silver buckles for his hose, leather apron, and shoe on lap. They really do describe him as kind of like a cobble, like, you know, the shoemaker of like fairy world. That I didn't know about leprechauns at all, that they were known for shoes. So obviously the modern image of the leprechaun in green and, you know, with the red beard and sitting on a toadstool hoarding his money is obviously like a modern day image of what the leprechaun is. And they think that maybe there's borrowed other characteristics from other folklores as well. They think actually one of the reasons why the leprechaun kind of went to green color instead is because in 1642, green was actually labeled as Ireland's official color. So they kind of figured that's part of the reason why in modern day you see the leprechaun in green, right? And it's true. Everything you see with Ireland, you do associate green, definitely not red. So maybe that's part of why modern times, you know, leprechauns are green. It's probably also modern in media and what have you too, because like the leprechaun is very, very heavy in media. And they're suspecting like the fashion of the leprechaun too to be kind of olden times for a reason, because back when Irish immigrants were coming to Canada and the US, their clothes were dated. So they're also thinking that's maybe part of the reason why they, you know, the leprechaun was dressed the way he did, especially with the hat and what have you, like the wide brimmer hat, that was more common. So another thing that I read, which I, didn't really think of, but, after I read it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. There is actually no female leprechauns. There's none. Which, how do leprechauns keep producing then, right? Some sources claim that leprechauns are actually the unwanted children of the fairy community. As a result, leprechauns are described generally as grouchy and untrusting and solitary creatures again. So that would be a good way to kind of explain why there is no female leprechauns. I don't know. You think the males are grouchy. I bet a female leprechaun would be even worse. Come on. Am I right, ladies? Like, we can be a growly bunch. Also, for those of you who want to know what leprechaun actually means, because I know there's some of you out there that like that type of thing. I do too. So it comes from a variation of the middle word, Irish word, and I'm going to say it wrong, lupercaun, which means small. And then, of course, the word corpse, which is body. So basically, leprechaun means small body. Which, everything we've seen of them, they are small. So leprechauns are basically known as, obviously the bankers in fairy world, right? That's their tale, right? They have lots of gold and they hide it at the end of the rainbow. But the other part of it is that, like I said before, they're shoemakers, they're cobblers, which, being alone all that time because they're solitary fairy, I guess that does kind of make sense that, they would do some hobby. Now, in some tales, they say that's why the leprechauns have so much money is because of their shoemaking skills. Other tales say that they're more like actually bankers for the fairy world, which that is an interesting concept. Like the idea of, bankers. Like, you want your gold, you have to blah, blah, blah. I don't know. But doesn't that sound like an interesting concept? Having, even fairies having bankers, people who take care of the money, make sure frivolous fairies don't spend all their gold in one place. Wish I had a leprechaun. Kind of tried to make my cheeks rosy like a leprechaun. Maybe went overboard, but it's cute. So in a lot of the tales, right, they say if you're lucky enough to capture a leprechaun, you can't take your eyes off him because he will indeed disappear. There is actually one tale of a man who actually was able to capture one and forced the fairy to divulge his secret of where the gold was hidden. The leprechaun reluctantly pointed to a tree. Delightedly, the man tied a red bandana around the branch and ran home to get a shovel. Which makes sense, right? You're going to have to dig. When he returned, he was dismayed to find all the trees were sporting red bandanas. So the leprechaun, smooth move. Don't let your eyes off them because they are going to trick you. That is one of the things is a lot of the leprechauns are kind of sneaky. But there are also tales of leprechauns being quite generous too, though. There's one in particular. There was a gentleman, he was really down on his luck, who offered a leprechaun a ride on his horse. In return, the man returned to his crumbling estate because, he's down on his luck. Things are falling apart. Or crumbling castle, to find it filled to the ceiling with gold. So, maybe if you're nice to a leprechaun, maybe that would give you better luck than just trying to steal his gold. Just saying. Keep it in mind. Any of you in, Ireland looking for a leprechaun. Speaking of which, actually, this is one story I found very interesting. In 1989, a local businessman in Carlingford, Ireland, claimed to have found evidence of a real leprechaun. I kid you not. I can't make this up. Found on the mountain, I'm hoping I press Voy, V-O-Y-E, Voy. He said that after hearing screamings near a wishing well, he found bones, a tiny suit, and gold coins scattered all over near scorched earth. The evidence is now displayed in like behind glass case for visitors to come and see. Like, I don't know. I kind of want to go see it myself, but this is the cool part of it. So as a result, the new tradition was born during an annual leprechaun hunt. 100 ceramic little leprechauns are hidden on this mountain. And tourists come every year to try and hunt down these leprechauns. Hunters need to buy like a hunter's license. I think this is fantastic. 2019 was the 30th anniversary of the finding of the leprechaun bones. And it was the 10th anniversary of their official European Union recognition. Fortune seekers abandoned their mountain search and instead scoured the town for hidden leprechaun pots, and one which like apparently has like a real bar of gold in it. Like, I think that is just, that's banging. I am so down for it. I'm going to go and I'm going to hunt for leprechauns because that just sounds so much fun. Another little tidbit that I found that I thought was kind of interesting is that actually leprechauns are protected under European law, right? This is badass. Apparently there are 236 leprechauns still live in the caverns of Foy, that mountain where the body and bones, well, not body, bones of the leprechaun were found. So in 2009, the EU granted heritage status to the remaining wee people. They now have their own protected sanctuary nestled in the mountain. The directive actually protects the forest and fauna of the area too, which is like, that's fantastic, right? Like, protecting it all. I live for this. Like, the whole the folklore and how the Irish people kind of, you know, almost treasure it and kind of take care of it. I really think that's quite fascinating, and they should be kind of applauded because it's definitely the symbol of the Irish people. And yeah, I'm loving this topic. Another thing I was reading too is apparently they're thinking leprechauns actually may have divine heritage even. There's so many big folklores about like leprechauns that I just I'm getting immersed here. Some sources say leprechauns are derivatives of the Irish deity Lug, and he's the god of the sun and of arts and crafts. So, which would make sense, at least in that aspect, with them being kind of like the cobblers of the fairy world. And then after the rise of Christianity, obviously Lug's importance kind of diminished. And he was denoted to a shoemaking folklore character known as Lug Cromang, which would, again, make sense, right? That he would be kind of tied to the leprechaun. But I actually want to tie this into something that I really love, and I don't know if anybody else out there is watching it, but it is a favorite of mine. It is called, the show, it's on the Prime TV. It's called The American Gods, and it's loosely based on a book by Neil Gaiman. And in it, there is a leprechaun. He's gorgeous, handsome, red-headed, rawr. He's delicious. But as you find out more about his backstory, they do tell you that he was a noble king. It wasn't just like he was a leprechaun. He was this noble king, and it just, reading that kind of made me think of that. I don't know. Let me know what you think, Darklings. Any of you guys watch American Gods? Because that show is amazing. And if you don't, and you're into like mythology and what have you, I highly, highly recommend it. There is 3 seasons on there now. And one of the reasons why I love it, it features the actor Crispin Glover. And I just love him. He's so avant-garde, and he picks such interesting roles and what have you. So when I saw his name on it, I'm like, ooh, but I digress. Now that we've kind of come full circle and we talked about media a bit there, so I figure we might as well like continue on with that aspect of the Leprechaun story. Let's talk about how he's still such a big deal within our media, really, and how we pretty much see a leprechaun almost daily. So, I don't know. As I mentioned, the American Gods one is one of the more, I would say, newer ones. But again, please check it out. Okay, so there's that. What's another one? Lucky from the Lucky Charms box. I think like we are programmed to see leprechauns just like as soon as we were children, right? Like who didn't want to catch Lucky? They were after me, Lucky Charms. Another one for me. This may be showing my age a little bit, but there is a Disney movie. It's an older film from Disney. I don't know how I got it. I think maybe my grandmother showed it to me when I was younger. I'm not exactly sure, but I was fond of it, and it was called Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and it came out in 1959. It was a live action one. I wonder if it's on Disney Plus. I didn't check that before I came and talked to you about it. And it features the Leprechaun King. And it also features Fergus MacLeod, which I did mention, which is like the first known kind of leprechaun story. In the film, he captures the Leprechaun King, and the Leprechaun King grants him 3 wishes. Just like Fergus in the saga there. But apparently they even worked with, who is it? Seamus Dilgary and the Irish folklore community. So apparently they didn't really ask for any mythology about it, maybe because it's so prominent, but it's kind of cool that, you know, they were in leagues with, you know, the appropriate people to try and make that movie really, really stellar. And of course there is the horror movie collection of The Leprechaun. This is the full, complete movie collection. I think there is 7 altogether. Something like that. This is the Lordling's copy because he is a huge horror movie buff. So it's been kind of my goal to try and collect some obscure horror movies for him. So I did get him the whole Leprechaun collection. But I did want to touch on this. I don't want to talk about it a lot. If you guys have seen it, you'll know it. Because I did notice, my darklings, with my last video on The Lost Boys, you guys did watch it, but nobody commented. So I am unsure if you guys actually enjoyed the whole me kind of talking about a movie, what I enjoyed about it. I'm still going to do this, but I would like to put out content that you guys want to watch. So if me talking about a movie isn't something you enjoy while I do my makeup, please let me know, comment, let me know, okay? I want this to be enjoyable for all of us. Okay. So other places where leprechauns kind of show up, it's like, really, there's a lot. Notre Dame Leprechaun, it's the Fighting Irish, and he's got his dukes up. There is also the Boston Celtics. Their logo has a Lucky the Leprechaun in it. Heck, there is even, I'm going to really show myself. There was a wrestler on WWE Wrestling, and his name was Fit Finlay, and he was Irish, obviously. And he used to pull out a leprechaun from underneath the ring to have this leprechaun attack people. That leprechaun later came out, and he was a character known as Hornswoggle, and he was funny. I always really enjoyed it. I'm a big wrestling fan. So, but yes, leprechauns are kind of everywhere in our day-to-day lives. And that, my darklings, is all about leprechauns. I mean, I could have talked to you for hours about leprechauns. There is so much information out there, but I kind of tried to make it a little bit shorter. Also, I'm not sure about this lipstick color on me, but you knew I was going to try it, my loves. You knew I was going to try it. Also, these cute little earrings here, little lips. I thought they would look cute, and the whole idea, kiss me, I'm Irish. They were a gift from one of my mom friends. She knows who she is. I love her. Thank you. As always, darklings, you know where to find me. I am on Instagram and Facebook under Lady Mylita. And on Mondays, we talk about monsters, our legendary creatures. We talk about movies, we talk about books, we talk about folklore and mythology, or cryptids. Talk about cryptids too. So, darklings, let me know what you want me to talk about on my Monster Mondays. There's lots of ideas. I got lots going through my head, but I would really love some input. Yes, please make a comment. Tell me what you want to see. Also, I am very, very, very close to 200 subscribers. I can't believe it. So I thought when we would hit 200 subscribers, I would do another get to know me, get ready with me, where I answer your questions. So if you have any questions about me that you would like to know, please leave them down below as well. Or you can always go to my Instagram and my Facebook, and I always post a little blurb about a new video. You can leave them there, or heck, you can even private message me and I will have them there. Until next time, my lovelies, stay safe. I adore you all and I appreciate you all. Goodbye, my darklings.